Hello, everybody. So my name is Steve. I'm the founder of Sports Live and Sports OS, the first global sports operating system. We have an incredible panel for you today, and I think we could probably go on for hours talking about our passions about sports and how we can embrace and grow grassroots. I'd like to welcome onto the stage Hint, Tarek, and Pietro. And I'm sure you're going to be excited to hear some of the achievements these have made in sports and community over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Welcome to the stage, everyone. Without digital transparency at grassroots level, elite sport has no pipeline. I just want you to think about that for a second. Every major sports icon in the world has been empowered by a local sports community, whether that be a supporter, a volunteer, a parent, or a community facility. As mentioned, I'm joined by an excellent panel today. We're going to talk about innovation, tech in sports, creativity as well, and how we can leave a legacy for our future, grandchildren. I'm going to introduce first Hint on the far left for you. She's a sports innovation leader, the first Arabic woman to lead a business sports operation in the UAE. She's directed mega sports and cultural events. And excitingly, you implemented the Man City model for Al Jazeera Sports Club. So my first question to you, Hint, is how and why did you go all the way to Manchester in the rain and bring over the initiative they're driving there?
Thanks, first of all, Steve. So the first and obvious answer is that why Manchester City is because we are part of the same group. So CFG, City Football Group, owns obviously 19 international football clubs as well as almost 24 international Manchester City academies. We were having a local club, which is Al Jazeera FC, playing in the UAE First League, and then we had an academy. However, after years of not winning anything anymore, we understood that the problem was not necessarily the choice that we were making with the first team, but the problem was coming on the way and the operating model of our academy. And this is where we said that it's time, instead of doing a patchwork correction every time and just fixing one problem at a time, we're going to really kind of deep dive and do an audit, and with the help of the best, Manchester City, that has been a team task force brought to our academy. For 3 months, we worked together, and we have been kind of doing a 360 kind of a deep dive from elements that were never kind of looked at, especially in this part of the world where performance were the only thing that were really kind of looked at or even invested in. So we realized that basically the way how our kids were eating after training was not appropriate. I mean, having an intense 3 hours training and then end up going in a shisha corner and then having 10 McDonald's was not necessarily the thing that we wanted. So nutritionist was not, in fact, a function that existed. From an accommodation, child safeguarding, and then the way how we were scouting itself. So basically it was really done in a very traditional way, like back at the time how recruitment was done. It's either referral or the cousin of the cousin, no data driven. So basically there was also bias and unfairness. So not necessarily the good one were making it through. And this is where tech and data has been enabling us to bring fairness, consistency, and also a way to create a DNA and a culture. And I think that that's really the core thing that we were missing. We were building structures, but we were not having a culture. And it's really this that we have been changing, and from there, it was not also an overnight change. Yeah. It took almost three years to have really something now that is producing local homegrown player, because any given, I will say, club can't sustain the model of only importing players that are coming, taking a big check and going. What is next? So as I always said, because I'm coming from a corporate world where I have been for the 15 years focused in the HR function, We have seen the Emiratization, the Sauditization in the corporate life. I think we are now in a need of this kind of localization in the football or sports in general in the different clubs.
And how long did it take you to introduce these cultural changes? Because to implement new technology is very hard. And obviously, systematically, paper still is driving a lot of Middle East sports.
The resistance was big, to be honest, because first you either had people, and it was in fact a reality, not all our technical, I will say, crew was coming from a licensed, I will say, background. Mm-hmm. So there were people coming around the world, mainly from I will call the developing countries. We're not necessarily having all the appropriate licenses. So of course, for them, technology means replacements, while technology was faster, enabling you and giving you the tools to take the right decisions. So I think that we worked with the benefit, showing the benefit, first of all. Obviously, you had people that had to drop along this journey. Not everybody will be able to kind of cope with it. And starting also with the players. And I think that the players have been also hungry of this change, because when you also give them, that was also a mistake that I would say the club was done. Academy was completely managed separately from the first team. So even the inspirational, I would say, journey, they couldn't kind of foresee what they could become. And by, in fact, reversing the machine, bringing time to time the first team, training in the academy, bringing the tools as well, the catapult, for example, Gilles, that were used in the first team, to see the benefit of it, the data, how we can, and also give the data to the kids. And I think that now we know that youth are driven by data. They want to be in control of their information rather than being told what they have to do. And we see it, from 4 to 5 years old, a kid, before even speaking, I do remember my nephew coming to ask me for my code phone before even saying mom and dad, which is a reality. So today, they want to be on control of their data compared to adult age. And that's, in fact, it's the combination of education, because most of the people, I would say, in the developing world have been always focusing on the technical part and not the soft skills. And the soft skills, how to talk, the education, we know very well, though it's a kind of abrupt reality, not everybody will make it to the professional world.
Yeah, sure.
What you do when you get an injury, how you live through rehabilitation. I lived personally with this club, the pandemic. How you sustain a cheer first team when you don't have fans to clap at them. How you keep sure that your youth are still training while they're at home. So it's basically all this educative program that you create. It's, as I said, nutritionists. You have also psychiatric. So you do have all the mental coaches also. So all this kind of 360 element in addition of the physical performance. And you can't do this with the right tools.
So you're basically saying tech is able to help you drive measurable results. Using data gives you that ability to be able to develop and educate both the player and the community, because like you said, I think the numbers or the stats of an academy player actually making it to professional football are like 1%. And then if you're in a professional academy, it's 0.1% of those players. So in terms of the delivered results in the community, obviously you're a professional team and a professional academy. How did that empower the local community? How did you see that measurable data? What did you see in the local community in terms of the development of players?
But first of all, is that we did involve them. One, the entire education system. We know very well that Abu Dhabi is the biggest Emirates in UAE. So we have partnered with ADEC, so basically, which is the equivalent of Ministry of Education, to have all these kids, first of all, either coming to train. So we didn't have only football, we had also other games, to also come and watch the games. So the feeling of belonging, unlike Europe, where you will have, a simple thing. When you walk here in the street in Dubai, you won't have people randomly wearing Al Jazeera jersey.
Yeah.
They might wear a scarf only at a game day. But my biggest struggle was how I will feel in everyday match, 45,000 seats. that was one of the challenge. So we used actually the network of schools to do that. We also saw that there were some pattern in this, I would say, Emirati society where basically the senior citizen were not anymore bonding with the youth. So this is where we come up with kind of a mentoring where basically youth Emirati will sponsor and take care about a senior UAE citizen, and we created game days. So it was a lot of fun to find Emirati women, full veil, coming in to train and to play. And basically, when she saw that it is accessible to women, no matter how they are dressed, etc., she then authorized her girl to come. So this has been as well easing, I will say, the access to sports. So because culture is not something that you just come and translate, because a lot of, I would say, especially the commercial, I would say, pay to play type of setup will come take a European model, translate the program, plug and play. No, a culture is first to be respected. Do understand, first of all, the local culture, adapt your model, involve the local people to make it work. And the best ambassadors will be the people that will talk about it, that will live it. So again, the values for me, having worked in the corporate life, are not the set of values that are in a nicely framed at your entrance. They are the values that are lived from your doorman up to your CEO. And if they are not lived by every single person across the organization, they're not the right values.
Totally agree. Thank you. Pietro, a serial entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Penguin Pass in Italy. You've worked with some of the biggest clubs, federations in Italy, from Juventus to the ICC, the Football Federation. What have you learnt through your experiences working in elite sports that can help transform our local sports communities?
Well, let's say that we understood that we need to move from a process to a welcome. And as she was saying, from the door person to the CEO, the experience of a match, of a football match in our case, starts from the welcoming. From then on, you can track the behavior of people and you can provide them the best experience. That's what we are trying to do, because we are an IoT solution. We try to, let's say, control and track the behavior of people, but in order to provide them the best experience. And so I think that feeding the guests, feeding the fans with the right contents when they are approaching a VIP area or just the venue, the stadium, you delivering the right content for them, you are creating a community. In our case, it is a community of the sponsored guests, but among them there are fans. So the community will cross over from the VIP areas to the stadium. And so that's very important. And I think that with technology, now you can, because at the end of the day, is always in terms of data collection. Yeah. And we think that what is happening inside the stadium is like an event. And an event without data is like an event without guests. So it's meaningless.
You're absolutely right. And I think that links back to what Hind was saying earlier, where if you produce your own sports athletes into the academy and into the professional funnels, then even the ones that drop out are still going to be the fan and on that journey with that club forever. And then you use that passion to build around and build that digital community with the tech itself, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Fantastic. So in terms of the direct influence of revenue and fan loyalty, how do you think this technology is going to have an impact?
Well, there is a very interesting study, research from Nielsen Sport, stating that, well, in Europe there are like 35 billions invested in sport yearly, and it seems that 70% of that should be lost simply because there is no data. So there are no data. And the problem is that the sponsor will continue to invest if they see ROI. And so they see the benefits of their investment. This is what we are trying to do, and we can do it with data collecting. So we can understand how people are interacting, how people are enjoying the VIP area, because we think that that part is a very important part because it's a touch point. And if they have the right, let's say, feedbacks, maybe next year the sponsor will invest much more. And maybe the cost of the ticket will be lower for the community. And so I think that ROI from sponsors, engagement, could absolutely affect also the community in general.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. I mean, my next question was actually going on towards how do we democratize the elite sports monetization back to grassroots? And I think you hit on a great point there is that the only way that we can enable these communities is to have sponsors, commercial revenue coming through. And, back to a conversation myself and Renata earlier is that surely local brands want to support local players. And if we can't use technology to empower and educate these local players on the importance of that, then we're never going to produce that funnel into elite sports from the region that we're in, right? We can't keep going out and spending millions, billions of dollars on European talent, for example, when we could be investing that into grassroots now, using the technology to identify and empower this talent, and then obviously bring it through into the national team. So yeah, very, very important points raised there.
If I may just add something, because you remind me about something, is that's the cool part also when you start engaging big brands locally, especially the setup of UAE is quite different from elsewhere. Like just take the car dealers. So you might have Nissan having one, in fact, owners in Abu Dhabi and different in Dubai, etc. But one of the things that was making sure that we were spending and investing in the youth is that, without naming, but we had, for example, two big sponsors that said, listen, I will give you X, but I want minimum 15% of the X to go into the academy. So that's made the shift. So obviously, I don't want all the marketing to go to the first team. I want really, and we want also to have, for example, our corporate game to be played in the academy and not in the first team stadium. So that's also the type of activation that create much more, I would say, exposure, because then it's not anymore, I would say, only the first team, but it's really the grassroots that is valorized.
Fantastic. Tarek, I want to bring you in here because I want to talk now about creativity. And obviously creativity is something important in storytelling to those brands that we're bringing on a commercial level. So Tarek, you've worked with some of the biggest brands from Nike in Kuwait to different federations running massive, huge budgets. Tell me a little bit about how these enabled, or how it has enabled people to be able to engage on local community level.
Yeah, so the first thing I'd like to speak about is just the mindset before you think of building a community. So to me, in my opinion, community really isn't built through capital or code. It really stems from your story, the creativity that kind of sparks the community. That's what builds its identity and culture. So when I read the header, building communities through creativity and technology, there's one specific project I thought of that actually was the breakthrough in the creative agency I started, and how it led to technology bringing it to its scale. So if I could just ask the audience to visualize this. I wanted a slide, but I'll make you visualize it. So I'm a big basketball fan, and I live in Kuwait. And there was a time where I was researching and reading a lot about pearl diving and fishing culture. And I noticed the fishermen in Kuwait, this was pre-oil, they had these nets, these fishing nets that looked exactly like basketball hoops. So that's when it clicked, the creativity kind of just sunk in. So I went to the fisherman market, and I found a fisherman. I brought a hoop with me, and I said, can you knit a hoop with your fisherman net. We also found fisherman boat wood, so we built a basketball hoop with a fishing net, and we sailed. We put it on the boat. We spray painted the basketballs pearl, and we shot a campaign out of passion. And it was through that and other hoops that I've done that kind of took notice of the basketball community in Kuwait, and it legitimized my position in community building. And obviously, once that was established, I started holding these basketball events. And within these basketball events, it wasn't just the athletes, it was the artists, it was the creatives. They all came out. We were able to exchange ideas, network. So, I talked about the creativity. That was kind of like the spark. The community was kind of like the fire, and then the technology gave it wings and made it fly. So the technology really, in so many ways, took it to the next level, and that's when the bigger brands took notice of what I was doing. And when I say technology, I'm talking, not just social media. With the content we were able to produce, whether it be the VFX or the AI we incorporated. So. This really led to Nike taking notice, Foot Locker taking notice, ASICS taking notice. So it was kind of, in stages, but it all really started with the intention of just telling your story and acting on your ideas.
It's interesting because we were talking recently about the power of storytelling and where the opportunity comes with technology. Obviously, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, etc. All the players now are trying to create their own profiles to be able to showcase their skills. And I think there's a huge opportunity with creativity and storytelling to be able to empower these brands. I think that leads back into, Pietro, what you were basically saying is that I think there's got to be a rethink from sporting brands within the region to be able to adapt this technology to be able to understand where these people live in a digital world, what are their interests, and how can we use storytelling from the grassroots level, not just the elite sport level, but how can we use that to tell stories that empower brands? I think maybe some of them have done it. I can think Under Armour, maybe Nike very much sponsoring at the elite level. But I think from what Tarek was basically saying is that giving the athletes and the sponsors the tools to be able to talk about the grassroots actually enables commercial revenue, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like we live in a time and age where there's absolutely no excuses not to utilize the technology around us to take it to the next level. Like now, the biggest rock stars are the content creators, right? And
Absolutely.
They're able to do that through their platforms. And they're the ones who are keeping up to date with, whether it's, OpenAI or Midjourney or Higgsfield, all those different types of softwares to really take you to that next step. So yes, absolutely, it's the way to go. If you don't embrace it, you're really gonna get eaten up by your competition. So yeah, in moderation though.
Good stuff. Pietro, anything to add to that?
Well, digital community, but also physical community. Like here, we are interacting physically, and I think that at the stadium or in a lounge, a VIP lounge, or in hospitality in general, you can interact with people, and interacting, I guess, if you can, again, track this kind of interaction, you are providing to the sponsors, to the clubs, to the federation. When we were lucky to work with the Italian Football Federation, we started with the first European, so 2020, and we run also the 2024. In Italy, we have, let's say, things like that called Casa Azzurri. And in that place, there is a lot of interaction. And you feel the sense of community, but in that case, a physical community. And you need to track that kind of community so that you can engage also later on, after that, the match is closed and the game is over. So that's, I think, is very important, the sense and connection of the physical community with the digital community.
Fantastic, fair point. Hint. So going back to the revenue, so how do we build this legacy? How do we take the money from the elite level? I think we've got some ideas from obviously the super fan, the engagement, the technology, creativity. So tell me a little bit about MENA Champions League and how you're going to use all of those tools to...
Sure. So first of all, I mean, for me, there is a kind of a combo, I would say, and a formula, because you have to have the right balance. You use first creativity to create, as you say, Tarek, the spark. Then culture will enable you to anchor your community. And tech will enable you to scale the culture and the community. So, and we have seen that from the pandemic onward, especially if we are talking about the Gen Z and the Generation Alpha, short span of attention.
Yeah.
Everything became like Netflix-sized, I would say. So even YouTube, that was for me or my parents already too much modern, they had to create the short because it's too long. Movie are not anymore. I'm not even talking about cinema. So, and sports, we have seen this influx of new leagues. Cricket, that was days, become now in a shorter version. Serena Williams investing in a basket 3x3. So all this kind of eruption of many, and this is where we looked at the MENA region, a region where the Gen Z and Alpha constitute almost 55% of the population. We're talking about 550 million that sit with one single asset in common, because obviously not across the MENA, they are equally, I will say, having the material, I will say, to afford, but at least everyone have either a phone, a tablet, or a laptop. So we go back to technology. They have something in common. So that's where the opportunity of MENA Champs League come up to say, okay, for the past 20, 30 years, we have been importing West concepts. We have been consuming UFC, football, name it. I mean, especially in this GCC part of the world. I think that now, entering in 2026, there are enough, I will say, Arab talents, being athletes, content creator from, I mean, every ecosystem in a sports world that can in fact take part of this journey. And this is why we thought that why not in fact bringing a concept that will be, I mean, coming from football will be a soccer driven. So a digital format, still having a physical venue, but it's not the big outreach that we want. It will be true content creator, but again, content creator that are specialized in football, that will be the advocates actually of what we are doing. But the most important is using this new type of modern football format as a social impact. How we can affect, in fact, the society and the community. Why not having here what I got coming from Morocco, every kid's playing in his neighborhood? Why not talking about Dubai, a Jumeirah neighborhood against the Rashidia, against the GVC? We don't have these vibes here. So how we can create this kind of things through the modern football of football? And you can't do that, obviously, without coming back to tech, because tech enable you to, through content, hook the young. And today, no more, in fact, attachment, I would say. New generation are not anymore attached and loyal to a team. They are attached to a person. Personally, I am a fan of Ronaldo. If tomorrow he's playing in Uzbekistan, I will follow him in Uzbekistan. And it's a reality. It's a reality. So today, and this has been enabled by the tech. Because today I am able to access to Ronaldo no matter where is he, because of the tech. And that's basically what we need, and clubs and sports and federation need to understand what is the new myth we're gonna give to this new generation. I'm not saying that traditional sports will die, but it's gonna go by little and little. And the new generation need to have something that fit her. I mean, if I take to my nephew, he doesn't even knew that a CD existed or a cassette existed. So for example, because he's born with an iPhone in hand. So, and that's basically the kind of a new juice that you need to kind of give to these new generations.
Totally agree. So we have 60 seconds left. I'm just going to ask a simple question and a very fast answer from each of one. Do you think elite sports is doing enough at the highest level to be able to filter money back into the community? I'll start with you, Tarek.
Yes. I'm just going to use the NBA as an example. So I know, I mean, the news came out, I think last week, that now they're investing in a Europe League, NBA Europe. So I was actually happy to hear that they're, expanding globally. In terms of technology, yes, I see it all across the front. So it's a very promising time for sports. I just feel like people just need to remember that each of their stories is unique, and that's what people want to see in this time and age: elevated taste levels of storytelling.
And Pietro, in terms of legacy?
Well, I think not enough, but they are starting to, and I just guess that again, working with sponsors, the sponsor could be, let's say, a key in order to enable that and make it faster. That's my
Fantastic.
opinion.
Hen?
Same. I will join Pietro. Not enough. And for me, one is sponsor, but sponsors sometimes they want a fast return on investment. That's the issue as well, and that's where, for me, sports can't go without hand in hand with education. Education, this is where. So a Ministry of Sport that doesn't work hand in hand with a Ministry of Education will fail, because this is where we start. We don't create, in fact, champions without creating first sense of belonging. And this sense of belonging starts. Your father told you, I am your father, she is your mother. And that's what we need in sports. Who are we to then become what we want to be tomorrow?
Fantastic. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I could sit and talk to you guys forever. Thank you so much for joining us on the panel today, and for everyone listening.
Thank you.